Hello, hello, everybody coming in. All right, for those of you who are brand new coming in, could you let me know that you can hear me okay in the chat and that audio and video are good? And I'm going to go out and make sure that everything is streaming live on Facebook. I'm just going to check this out and see if it works. And so once we get the go ahead, we do, give it a couple minutes for people to come in and I hear that everything is good. You guys can hear me. Just pop it in the chat and let me know that all is well. Thank you, Karen. Hi there. How are you? We will get started. And let me just, again, thanks for your patience. I'm going to just make sure I've got everything shut down on the back end here so that our signal is running nice and clear today. All right, I'm excited about this topic for so many reasons. Number one, all of the myths around what food really is and what it's about to eat whole food. Hi from India. Hi, guys. Yeah. So as you come in, please tell me where you are. Where do you live? Where are you from? Are you a health coach? Are you just someone trying to optimize your health? Tell us a little bit about yourself. So we've got good audio, we've got good video. It looks like we're actually streaming live on Facebook. And so we're going to get started in just a moment. And I would like to, let me see here. Karen, since you're the first one that said everything looked good, I'm going to wait and check on your reply to make sure that you can see my screen once I start my screen share, and then we will get rolling. Okay. All right. And as usual, you guys, put your questions in the Q&A. If you have any questions at all about this presentation or anything at all about the 7 Essentials series that I have been doing, and we have started a couple of weeks ago. So far, we've done the introduction to the 7 Essentials series. We've done the first essential, which is stress perception. And, again, you guys, if you haven't seen it, we will include it whenever we do a webinar. We include the replay from the prior webinar so that you can keep up. And just making sure that you're following the series all the way to the end. There are 7 essentials, and I'm going to cover them again at the end of this webinar to share with you guys why we're talking about how to get back to the basics of self-care and why it's so important that we have a complete and total shift around the way that we think about food, health, and wellness, and the way that we are living our lives today. So we will get started. I'm going to do a screen share. Karen, I'm going to look to you to tell me in the chat that all looks well, and that you can see my screen before I hit my video off, which I always like to stop my video so that I don't get distracted. I'll turn it back on at the end, and we'll finish the conversation with Q&A. And just let me know everything good, and I will hit play and we'll get started. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Keep talking amongst yourselves in the chat. Hello to everyone. Let us know where you are from. And I will, hold on a moment. Got to move my little window down here. And we're going to get started. Hold on just a second. Zoom is not cooperating with me right this moment. Okay. All right. So it's called the 7 Essentials series because there are 7 things. When I started the school, the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, I had been working with clients for many years. And what I discovered was that it wasn't just about food and movement. It was about so much more. And those are the things that I'm sharing with you guys today. We can't just look at food. We cannot just look at movement. We have to look at the person as a whole. And that is where the name, the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, came from. As health coaches, it is up to us to really help people understand how important it is that we live in a functional way. So number 2 is whole food living, moving away from the standard American diet and into a healthier lifestyle. So as always, this is my disclaimer. It's just my experience that I'm sharing with you guys. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest. It's your responsibility to use this information in today's webinar in a way that feels best to you. I'm not diagnosing or prescribing or giving advice from a nutritionist or dietitian standpoint or a medical professional. I am simply a health coach trying to educate you guys and give you some tools for your health toolbox. I'm Carmen Hunter. I'm a certified health coach. I'm the founder of the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, Carmen Hunter LLC, and Health Coach Mentorship and Mastery Group. So what we are covering today, we are talking about what the standard American diet is and how we got here. So the acronym for that, as you're going to see throughout this presentation, is SAD. It's quite appropriate, as you're going to see. We're going to talk about what it means to eat a whole food lifestyle, which means eating towards health and not disease, why diet trends are never effective, how multi-level marketing sucks you in and spits you out, what cumulative damage occurs from eating the standard American diet, and what is one of the most effective low-stress things you can do to start eating differently today. So we have to be able to define the standard American diet. And there's a lot of definitions out there. This is one that I just kind of played with a little bit amongst all of the explanations that were out there that seems to make the most sense to me. So the standard American diet is a modern diet that negatively affects American adults and children across the United States with long-term damaging health complications and issues. The standard American diet consists of ultra processed foods, added sugars, fat, and sodium. Consumption of whole food is severely lacking in this diet. The other thing I'd like to say that's also added to our food that's unnecessary is gluten, one of those man-made proteins that's been added to our diet to make things sticky and gooey and yummy, and to basically keep you addicted to the unhealthy food choices that are given to us today. The standard American diet consists of an estimated 50% carbohydrates. This is just an estimate, you guys. 15% protein, 35% fat. We're going to learn a little bit about each one of those very briefly today. And while these macronutrient percentages fall within the U.S. Department of Agriculture's guidelines, the types and quality of foods in a SAD diet plays a much bigger role. It really is all about quality, as you're going to find today. So it's not just about food. The standard American diet is about also a lifestyle. So we're talking about the standard American person. This person and this lifestyle consists of eating fast food on a regular basis. And I'm talking about, the majority of your food being fast food, eating out of boxes. So eating out of the pantry more than eating out of the refrigerator, not cooking at home, eating out for most meals, frozen foods, shopping the inside of the grocery store. If you've ever hired anybody to help your grocery shop that knows what they're talking about, the first thing they're going to tell you when you go to the grocery store is always shop the perimeter of the grocery store. That's where all the whole food is. Being sedentary, not moving your body enough, staying up late or claiming to be a night owl, too much blue light, right? Too much screen time, computers, phones, iPads, all of those things. Not enough time outside in nature, and not connecting with others. And this is just a small list that I have put together, because here's the thing, you guys, putting it all together can seem like a 1,000-piece puzzle, because if I added all of the things in here that go along with living a standard American lifestyle, we would be here for an hour just talking about those things. But the good news is we can put our health back together. We can be proactive about this. It just has to be done one piece at a time. If we do it and we try to dive head first, that's kind of a recipe for disaster. I've seen more people fail in trying to do too many things at one time, as opposed to taking one step at a time. And one of my famous sayings is this, is when you're getting started with changing your life, when it comes to food, lifestyle, or anything like that, we just want to dip our toe in the water one at a time. And whether you start with the big toe, bigger steps, or the little toe, it's up to you. Everybody is different. So how did we get here? How did this start? How did we end up in such a unhealthy way being the norm? In the 1950s, proper nutrition was about recommended food groups. Meals were primarily in the home. Restaurants were for special occasions. Obesity was not very common. It was an uncommon problem. And dieting, believe it or not, was only for women who were looking to slim down, the housewife that wanted to be slimmed down for the husband coming home from work. Today, there are fewer intact families, lots more divorce, lots more split time between families. Many meals are prepared by others, basically, like we just talked about, takeout, fast food, microwavable foods, frozen foods, etc. Restaurant eating occurs much more often and is about calorie excess. So I know you guys have noticed the difference in how much food you get on a plate when you go to a restaurant, as before, when it was really quite normal servings. Now we're getting piles of food where you can eat on the same meal for 2 to 3 days in a row, which is absolutely ridiculous. Obesity is an epidemic, and dieting is now widespread, and diabetes complications are everywhere, not to mention all of the things that come along with metabolic health issues. So a large part of this is from the misguided government recommendations, and we're going to take a look at some of those in just a moment. But also because of the success, really, if you want to call it success, of the American food industry marketing and addictive ingredient manipulation, which is really what this is all about. Once again, we're talking about marketing and programming, and that's going to come up a lot as we go through the 7 essentials, because so much of what we've learned or what we've been trained to believe or to see or experience has come from the way that we've been programmed, some from childhood, or that we've been marketed to. So the government began promoting a change to the American diet in the 1970s. Saturated fat was the focus, and baseless recommendations were made to reduce them, right? To reduce fat. The unintended consequences were insane. So calories from animal fats were replaced with calories from refined carbohydrates, excess sugars, and flours. Animal fats gave way to unhealthy vegetable oils and seed oils, which contain a huge amount of rancid trans fats, which results in higher intake of empty calories, right? People no longer felt satiated or satisfied when they were eating. So carbohydrates. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see the sad carbohydrates, right? And then on the right-hand side, I'd like to just kind of throw a picture in of what not sad looks like, healthy food. So we're talking about desserts for breakfast. This is really, really important. So desserts for breakfast, when I say that, if you can think about, the things that maybe you grew up on, or you grew up eating, or maybe even right now, the things that you're eating or you're feeding to your children, are things that you go through the drive-through and pick up. These are muffins, these are pancakes, French toast. These are things that literally are so sweet, they taste like dessert. It is one of the worst things you can do to start your day off with nothing but a blast of sugar, right? And then when we look at carbohydrates for lunch, one of the most common things that people do is they go out to Subway or Jimmy John's or somewhere like that, or go through the drive-through and they get a sandwich for lunch, which is basically mostly grains and other non-foods, right? Pasta for dinner. Well, pasta and rice and those types of things are very easy to prepare. They're quick and they're not very expensive. So pasta for dinner, again, another grain, which has a lot of sugar in it, is a very a normal or a common foundation for dinner on the standard American diet. And then, of course, we've got bars, which it seems like so many people are living on these days, and you can get any kind of bar with any kind of ingredient in it, and processed refined flours and sugar-based foods. Again, these are small lists. We're just touching on what these things are when it comes to the standard American diet. So protein. So protein on the standard American diet are the factory-fed meats, right? The cattle that are living in small quarters, the pigs that are raised in those tiny little cages, factory-fed meats. These are inhumanely raised animals and animal products such as dairy and cheese and so on. So I want to stay here for just a moment because this is a fact, a statistic that most people don't understand and why it's so important. So when you are out shopping for proteins and you're looking for meats to cook for your family, one thing that you need to keep in mind is everything that the animal eats, you are also eating. Everything that the animal experiences, you will also be ingesting. So this is one of the more unpleasant parts of what I do when I educate people, because it's very sensitive. There are a lot of people out there that can't even stand to hear about animals being treated inhumanely. And I'm one of them. I was a president of the Humane Society for many years. I had given up red meat and pork for 23 years and most chicken and turkey and fish. So I have experience with understanding what animals go through. So when I educate about this, I want people to know that it comes from a place of experience and a place of deep compassion. So that is why this part is so important that I share with you. If you are going to make one small change to the protein that you ingest, let it be that you ingest humanely raised meats and animal proteins and products. The one thing that you're looking for on that label is not organic. It's not, pasture fed or anything like that. It is certified humanely raised. So please make a note of that. Next time you go to the grocery store, spend a little bit of time learning about that, you guys. So you have to remember that when these animals are stressed out, they're experiencing cortisol spikes, like we talked about in the stress perception webinar last week. And when those stress hormones get into that animal and then you eat that animal, you are also affecting your own stress hormones. So I'm not going to go on any more about that, but it is important enough that you understand how important that part is. So also synthetic proteins and protein replacements. Many people go vegetarian or vegan because they think it's better for them, it's healthier for them and so on. But many times what isn't being done is looking into what those proteins and protein replacements are made out of. And soy is one of the more common bases for proteins. Ingesting too much soy can also affect your hormones. So just keep that in mind. Fast food, I can't say much about this because most of the time I don't really know what the protein is that is in fast food. I watched a video a couple of weeks ago on Instagram where a woman had put a fast food meal from a popular food chain and put it in a bag. I'm just going to say it's McDonald's, put it in a bag, put it away for 20 years, 2 decades. She pulled that meal out with her children there, and it was exactly as it was when she put it away 2 decades before. Okay. I wish I could find that video. I might take a look for it and plug it into the replay. Don't forget, you will get a replay. But if that's not a telling thing, you guys, I don't know what is. And then, of course, we want to talk about the multi-level marketing protein powders with the unhealthy fillers and the other products that they sell as well. Now, multi-level marketing products we'll touch on briefly in just a few minutes, but I have yet to really find one multi-level marketing product or program or food program out there that is going to be more cost effective, less stressful financially, emotionally, physically, etc., than just going to the grocery store and learning how to shop. So I have a lot of people that reach out to me on the regular. They think I have this audience that would just eat this up and they're going to make a bunch of money by me signing up as a multi-level marketing person underneath them. I have yet to do that when it comes to food, because I have yet to find anything that is easier than learning how to grocery shop and buy your foods from a co-op, a local farmer, or a farmer's market or the grocery store. So we will talk about that in just a moment, a little bit more. Now, fats. I'm going to share some interesting information with you guys about fats in just a moment and where the fat myth came from. So hold on a moment. I'm going to get a drink of water. And so the standard American diet with fats. So we've got saturated fats, which are your factory fed animal fats on the standard American diet, right? And again, on the right, not sad, as long as your nuts are raw and they're organic. Those are not a sad fat, okay? Unsaturated fats, which are your vegetable and seed oils that I touched on briefly. Those are the things that will go rancid very easily. And then your trans fats, which are your baked goods and your fast foods. So I call this kind of a fun fact, but it's really not so fun if you follow this idea for any length of time. And I want to just kind of give you guys 1 second to ask yourself this question. Do you remember anyone in your life, or maybe it was you, that said, I eat low fat, I don't eat fat, fat is not good for you? Was your mom or your dad someone that raised you and said, we're going to eat low fat everything? Was everything in your refrigerator low fat, sour cream, low fat milk, low fat, everything, right? And then when did you see margarine in your refrigerator for the first time as a butter replacement? Okay, so we're going to talk for just a moment about how fats became so vilified. So I'm going to read, and I'll provide this in the replay for you guys as a resource. So middle-aged men, seemingly healthy, were dropping dead, wrote biochemist Ansel Keys. Americans needed a solution, and Ansel Keys was the knight in shining armor, or so the world thought. In 1952, and now remember this, Ansel Keys was a biologist. He was not a nutritionist or a dietitian. Keys presented the diet heart hypothesis that linked heart disease to fat intake. His hypothesis is why we fear eating fat to this day. So since his initial findings, avoiding fat has become synonymous with a healthy diet. Again, low fat, low sour cream, margarine instead of butter, butter replacements. And Americans have dutifully followed Keys' advice to their own peril. Chronic diseases skyrocketed around the world as refined carbohydrates and cancer-causing polyunsaturated fats have replaced saturated fats, okay? Remember, saturated fats are factory-fed animal fats on the standard American diet. But you guys, saturated fats that are not on the standard American diet are healthy fats. So keep that in mind. So we're talking about grass-fed, pasture-raised butter and dairy and things like that, okay? As long as people tolerate them. So essentially, Ansel Keys gave a pass to all other factors that led to chronic disease. So remember this, most Americans' daily exercise consists of squeezing ketchup and mustard on their fries and their burgers and things like that. So hundreds and millions of Americans have believed this lie, and hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent trying to confirm Ansel Keys' diet heart hypothesis to convince themselves of this crappy diet that's been adopted. So digging a little deeper, research ends up producing results that really disprove Ansel Keys' hypothesis, which is pretty shocking. I'm going to show you a little graph in just a moment. To this day, the anti-fat gospel is still one of the most recommended diets in all nutritional recommendations. And unfortunately, the USDA has done absolutely nothing to clear the damage that has been caused by his hypothesis. Like, he's long gone, but this still lives, right? The idea that saturated fat is unhealthy is so ingrained in our culture that many forget that it just started as an idea. Now, put that in your head, you guys. This was just an idea, okay? And even when they talk about his findings, they put it in air quotes here. So Keys first targeted cholesterol as the culprit for coronary heart disease and founded that arterial plaques contain cholesterol. Since animal fats also contain cholesterol, he claimed that cholesterol causes heart disease. An idea, you guys, there's no proof, okay? So we spent the 50s trying to prove this theory and ended up finding out that no matter how much dietary cholesterol he fed volunteers, the levels in their blood was unchanged. Now, this isn't the greatest graph here. It's a little bit blurry, but what you're looking at here is, on the left-hand side, is the truth. Using all 22 available countries' data, we see a poor relationship between total fat intake and actual heart disease. On the right is what Ansel Keys published. He selected 6 countries according to margarine use and deleted all of the rest, which produces a tight correlation. So On the bottom here, if you can't read it, it says lies, damn lies, and statistics. Ansel Keys blamed natural fat consumption for heart attacks, but the US, England, Canada, and Australia have the highest level of margarine consumption. Keys never mentioned margarine in his famous 6-country study, and the deception was never exposed. Well, it was eventually because we're looking at it, right? Keys is still considered a hero of modern medicine. So, how does this actually affect our health? Well, this is one example, and this is probably going to be another thing. If you didn't attend my cholesterol interview with Jimmy Moore about the cholesterol clarity and cholesterol myths, then this is going to be an eye opener for you. But just by reducing good fat alone, right? Just reducing good fat and believing this myth that cholesterol levels took a head dive. So basically, people took fat out of their diet out of fear, and cholesterol levels took a head dive. Hormones became imbalanced. Overeating became chronic, and chronic disease increased across the board. So I'm going to give you a slide to just take a peek at, but we're not going to dive into it because, as I promised, when I do these webinars, I'm going to keep things very friendly to the layman, to those of you that are not in the health and wellness professional. But take a look at this chart. So cholesterol comes from fat. Cholesterol is at the top of the chain of the hormone cascade. If you don't have enough cholesterol, then you cannot create pregnenolone, which is your mother hormone, right? Which, look at all of the things that pregnenolone does. It creates progesterone and DHEA and aldosterone and testosterone and cortisol and estrogen. And look at all the vitamins that are related to that. So let's just go back to thinking about what happened when people stopped eating fat. When people stopped eating fat and everyone went into a low fat way of eating or lifestyle, cholesterol levels took a dive, which were then the precursor to hormones. And where do we believe that all of the high estrogen came from, low testosterone in men came from, early menopause came from, infertility came from? So as I promised you guys, we're not going to deep dive into any of this, but I want you to keep this in your head right here. And if anybody's interested, I can throw this into the replay as well, this graph here, or just a link to it so you can take a look at it. Without good cholesterol, without enough fat in our diet on a regular basis, we are going to eventually experience hormone problems. All right, so basically what we're looking at with the standard American diet is that this scene that we're looking at, and not everything on this scene is going to be perfectly healthy, but I mean, when I looked at this picture, I thought, I want to put this in here because this is a family. They're eating together. They've got a wide variety of what looks like healthy food here. We've got some kids in here. So you're going to see a little bit of, you're going to see some cheese on the plates. They're drinking some wine and whatnot. There's lemon. There's, good fats on the dressing and all of that. This is a healthy picture, right? Historically, in addition to eating meals together, families spent time actually even making the food. So gardening, harvesting, pickling, fermenting, hunting, prepping meals. And so from cooking to cleaning, the kitchen time together, all of that, people then went and played board games after they ate together. People were connected. The standard American lifestyle is not like this any longer. People are no longer connecting or eating healthier food options. They're not involving each other on the actual process of getting that food to the table. They're not eating grass-fed farm animals, healthy fats, non-GMO vegetables, and so on. It looks more like this, okay? And this is again, a marketing tactic right here. Kids are looking happy. They're eating ice cream. We've got a bunch of fast food boxes surrounding this happy family. Marketing, right? And we've got fried food in the container there. And then this is also, and I'm going to be sharing quite a few pictures here as we move through. This is also what we're looking at. This is part of the standard American lifestyle. We've got a heavy-set person that is literally surrounded by nothing but junk food, probably experiencing addiction to all of those options there. We've got sugar for breakfast on the top there that we've already talked about. And then we've got kids right here, probably sitting in front of a TV the way it looks. Everyone's got their face in a phone. No one's talking to each other, right? I mean, this is the standard American lifestyle, unfortunately, that we are experiencing today. People are addicted, shut down, turned off, disconnected, and not invested in even tasting their own food or connecting with people that they care about anymore. All right, so back to how we got here. So we're going to touch on a little bit of history. And so one of the problems that we have here and that I've talked about in the past is trust and where we've given our power away. So I know that you've trusted the government, right? I remember being in elementary school and I remember the food pyramid. I remember them telling us what was considered healthy food. I never questioned it as a child, even though I was raised by a mother and a woman who had a beautiful garden, and I hated that garden. Let me say that out loud. And I know, Mom, you're probably on here. I loathed that garden because I had to work in that garden. But I also remember some of my biggest memories were sitting in the dirt, picking peas, opening them up and eating them out of the garden, straight out of the dirt, scrubbing the carrots, right outside, scrubbing the carrots in a wheelbarrow, all of that stuff. But I still never questioned that the government had my best interest in mind. So what they ended up doing, and again, why I'm saying this is because it's up to us to educate our children. Education about food and how we eat and how we live and how we connect to people does not happen in school. Okay. So we need to shift our trust from the government to ourselves, and our children need to shift that trust to their parents. Okay. So here's the biggest disaster in history. This was what they allowed. Now, I want you guys to take a minute, and this is blurry as well. And I just want to share with you how hard it was for me to actually find an image that was, I don't know, that really represented what this food pyramid looked like. I mean, it seems like they wiped most of them out of the images online. So I went out to my photo place where I buy my photos, and I found this. And this is pretty accurate, but I would say that the top of it and how people actually really followed the pyramid was maybe flipped upside down, right? More of these fats and oils and sweets and dairy and ice creams and sugars and all of that. So I would flip this upside down and say that people followed this upside down. But I want you to look at what they recommended. Look how little vegetables and fruits they recommended as opposed to all of these sugar-laden grains. So one of the facts that I remember learning when I was just diving headfirst into learning more about food, and what I used to share with my health coaching clients when I was just health coaching and not educating, doing the mentoring and things, was that I would tell them that a Snicker bar actually spikes your blood sugar less than a piece of white bread, less than a slice of wheat bread. Wheat bread actually spikes your blood sugar more than a Snickers bar. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know what to say when I read that statistic. I was blown away by that. So when you think that this bottom part of this pyramid is healthy grains, you got to think again, because grains spike your blood sugar and cause all of these metabolic problems and issues that we're seeing today. So then we have this. Moving on. In 2011, Michelle Obama created the My Plate, right, to combat, and I'm air quoting here, childhood obesity, to replace the pyramid. And this is what's still out on all of their sites today. And I just have to say that this is absolutely 100% not a good example of how to promote health, how to teach your kids how to eat, or how to move away from obesity, not in any capacity. Okay. Because the grains are still taking up a large amount of the plate, first of all. And there's no guidelines on here about the quality of food, which leads us to what is it? What's really happening? I'm kind of sharing this out of jest here, you guys. But if you're really going down the rabbit hole of understanding and learning about what's happening to our food, this is one company that we have to thank for where we are today with disease. Okay. This is the GMO food pyramid to plan your new diet of disease and death. And this is it may look like a joke, but this is absolutely what's happening to our food. Okay. So take a moment, take a peek at this. This is what's being fed to us. And those chickens looking like not chickens, that's happening on this picture on purpose. Okay. All of our food is being modified, genetically modified and changed, and it is not healthy for us. So some of the side effects of the standard American diet, again, these can take years to develop. So the person that says, well, I ate ice cream 2 nights ago and I'm fine, I have no problems. I tolerate that. That doesn't bother me. I just want you to keep in mind that you don't get sick overnight. So even on the flip side of that, you can't get well overnight either. So we're going to take like bite-sized pieces of how to enter into a healthier lifestyle as we talk about the 7 essentials. So no pressure on yourself, but take a look at this list. Diabetes, autoimmunity, bowel disease, anyone with irritable bowel disease, you guys, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, even ongoing diarrhea and constipation, that's considered a problem, right? Obesity, insulin resistance, heart disease, cancer, enzyme deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, addictions, and more. I mean, I could have also filled another hour full of the side effects of what happens when you eat a standard American diet. But no blame on you guys, right? Because you were given the wrong information about food and wellness for so long. If we've got grandmothers that are still alive, grandparents that are still alive, or great grandparents that are still around, they literally will probably tell you they don't remember, like when someone started putting food in food that you can't even pronounce, right? So I remember some of my best memories when I was growing up, and even though I didn't like it, again, some of the food that we were fed, I didn't care for. I remember so much time being spent in the kitchen. Our relatives, my grandmother making, making everything. So here we are, right? We're either moving towards health or we're moving towards disease. There is no middle ground. So I want you guys to think about this for just a moment. It doesn't mean that I want you to say, like, if you're a person that's eating the burgers, the pizza, all of that stuff, I don't want you to sit here and give yourself a hard time and say, oh my gosh, I've been eating and making myself sick, and shame yourself about this. There is no point in any of that, right? And if you're a person that's always eating on the right-hand side and you're like, oh, I eat like that all the time, well, you probably don't need to be here if that's you. But there is actually, there is room, there's wiggle room. There's an 80-20 idea, there's a 90-10 idea. When people start coming into the idea that they can make better choices and start eating towards health, even making a better decision, like eating something like gluten-free pizza, is a better decision that moves you towards health. Okay. So there's some room in between here when we're talking about eating towards health or towards disease. The middle ground is where you're just closing your eyes to the truth of what's really going on and you're not paying attention at all. Okay. So why do we make poor choices? Well, I just mentioned that a couple minutes ago. Maybe we were programmed or nurtured that way. Maybe it was what we grew up with, our parents' beliefs about food. Maybe we had trauma around food, our neurotransmitters, our hormones. There's a lot of things that go around, us making poor decisions. But the one thing I want you to be sure of is it's not about willpower. One of the most damaging things we can do is say to ourselves, I have no willpower. I used to have clients say that to me all the time. I don't have any willpower. And so that's a really shaming thing to say, because it's not necessarily true at all, because neurotransmitters play a huge role in how we eat. I want to touch on this one for a moment because I want everyone that's sitting here thinking that you have no willpower and you're sitting in shame and you feel guilty about everything you're doing. And maybe you're even sitting there right now eating something, you're looking around and going, maybe I shouldn't be eating this or whatever. I want you to, again, give yourself grace. Everything that comes with learning about how to eat healthier, live healthier, change your thinking, all of that about the 7 essentials has to do with being graceful to yourself and patient with yourself. Okay, just like I said, you didn't get sick overnight. You're not going to get well overnight. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So we'll briefly touch on what neurotransmitters are, and maybe this is going to give you maybe a sigh of relief. Okay, so how do they affect how and what we eat? So a neurotransmitter is a chemical messenger that carries, boosts, balances the signals between neurons, right? Also known as your nerve cells, and target cells throughout the body. Now, those target cells might be in your glands, your muscles, or other neurons. Billions of neurotransmitter molecules are constantly working to keep our brains functioning properly, managing everything from breathing to our heartbeat, our concentration, our learning. But they also affect a variety of psychological functions like our mood, fear, pleasure, and joy, etc. So what happens when these neurotransmitters are imbalanced or low? And let me just a moment, I'm going to give you a list here. These things can happen for all kinds of reasons, down to eating foods that don't work for us, stress, like we talked about last week, experiencing things that really aren't stressful, but feeling them that way instead of seeing them for what they are. So what happens when our neurotransmitters are imbalanced or low? You're going to see things like overeating, addiction, mood disorders, a search for dopamine through poor food choices or other things, right? Searching for the feel good feeling. Maybe, serotonin reuptake inhibitors or anti-anxiety and depression medications, birth control prescriptions, all of those types of things. So briefly, dopamine is your reward neurotransmitter. And we like the things you get a hit on, right? Getting on social media and maybe someone likes a post, you get that dopamine hit. Maybe you're a person that says, yeah, I get that runner's high. And every time I go out, my endorphins are kicking and, you get your high. That's your dopamine hit. Maybe you're a person that when you're under stress, you like to shop. That's, again, you think about shopping, you think about that glass of wine, that's your dopamine. You're getting that dopamine hit. And so food is the same way. When we think about that, that ice cream cone or that bag of chips or what we're going to eat for dinner, that makes us happy, right? Serotonin is your feel-good hormone. So that's your sex, sleep, mood, appetite. All of those are determined there. So serotonin, as I've mentioned in prior webinars, it is mostly found in your gut. Well, when you're eating inflammatory foods on the standard American diet, your gut is going to pay a price for that. Okay. So when you are eating inflammatory foods, when you are not, paying attention to the things you're putting in your mouth and you're affecting that serotonin, you are absolutely 100% going to make decisions based on that type of thing. So if you're looking for the dopamine hit, if you're looking to feel better, you're going to reach for those foods that are addictive, right? Like ice cream and sugar and cookies and all of those things that hit that reward center and give you that dopamine hit you're looking for. And then the last neurotransmitter, there's all kinds of other neurotransmitters out there, but the other one I want to touch on briefly is GABA. That's your relaxation neurotransmitter. It helps with anxiety. It's an anti-anxiety neurotransmitter and so on. Many people reach for those addictive foods and things like that when their GABA is low, when their serotonin is low, when they don't have enough dopamine. So if you're blaming yourself for the decisions that you're making, I want you to just sit with that for just a moment and wonder, maybe, the way that you're living, maybe you're stressed out and your neurotransmitters have been affected. So it's not necessarily that you have no willpower. You're making decisions based on your physiology and the things that your body is asking you for. Okay. Your body sends out a message. You're reacting to that message. It is not anything to shame yourself about. So it was really important for me to add that in there because the goal of all of this education is to help you guys to get more empowered, to take back your freedom, to be easier and more graceful with yourself, and to make decisions that are based on education and and your instincts, your gut instincts, not anything that anyone else is telling you, right? Like I said, take what you like and leave the rest. So another thing here, this is another myth. It's not about calories in and calories out. So if you're running to run off what you ate for dinner, or maybe you're training for a 5K or a marathon because you're going out this Friday night and you want to blow it out on wine and pizza or whatever it is. It's about the quality of the food that you put in your mouth. Calories really only matter if there is severe obesity and someone needs to be monitored in a medical facility or setting. But otherwise, you guys, it's about the quality of food you put in your mouth. And I 100% want to just say this is, I believed all of this stuff at one point too. I was also that person until I started diving into what all of this stuff means when I was dealing with my own chronic health problems back in the late 90s. And so this was one of my favorite ones that I was able to say, okay, that doesn't make any sense. And because I love to eat, I'm a person that loves to eat. You can ask anybody in my family or anyone that knows me really well. I eat a lot. And so if I were to eat as much as I eat now of standard American food, I would be obese. So it is about the quality of food that you put in your mouth. Again, there's nothing unhealthy about eliminating entire food groups for long-term success. So if someone said, well, and we're going to touch on some of those in a moment, you shouldn't be eating this, you need to take out that. You don't need to be eating this, you need to eat this way. There is nothing unhealthy, hear me, about eliminating entire food groups for long-term success. So are there times that you need to maybe eliminate specific things to reach specific goals to reduce inflammation? Of course there are, but those are going to be the exception, okay? So don't fall for multi-level marketing food products, okay? We're talking about things like Shaklee or It Works or Advocare or any of those products. And I'm sure there's some coaches on here that can drop some of these other things that they've been dealing with their clients right in the chat about multi-level marketing. I will have to tell you, in all honesty, in the hundreds of clients that I've worked with, I will tell you that every single client that I actually went to their house and did a pantry cleanup, or they provided me with what they were eating that had multi-level marketing products on there, were sicker than anyone that had not tried multi-level marketing products, because they believed that was the solution to their problem. They believed that if they ate this particular way, because they're marketed to that way, that they were going to lose weight and be healthy. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars dropped on non-food, I'm air quoting here, non-food products that were laden with fillers and inflammatory products and soy and things like that made people sicker, that they did not tolerate. Okay. So keeping that in mind, this is not a long-term solution, not in any capacity. So my rule is this: if you cannot sustain it for life, don't start it. Okay. Don't start it when it comes to what you're looking for solutions. So don't fall for big promises, pills, wraps, powders, and more. Trends, keto, carnivore, vegan, paleo, any of those things. Someone else's solution. I know we all have this well-meaning friend or family who promotes their solution and how it worked and all of that, and they just want to push it on you. You always need to tap into your own instincts and believe what is best for you, feel what is best for you, and follow that. Okay. So it's nice to hear ideas, but don't just latch on to something because your aunt, Barb, lost 50 pounds on a carnivore diet. It's all very individual. And don't fall for the latest, greatest fast detox or cleanse for life. Detoxes and cleanse and fasts can be absolutely powerful in losing weight and getting inflammation under control, but it's not a lifestyle. Okay. All right. So again, diets and multi-level marketing fads do not work long term. That's not to say that you shouldn't try them at some point. So these are famous, tried and true or not plans. I just mentioned a couple of them, but vegetarianism, paleo primal eating, ketogenic diet, otherwise known as keto. The carnivore diet is new on the scene. Everyone's talking about the carnivore diet, right? Very low carb diets, multi-level marketing, as I've mentioned, Amway juice plus Herbalife, fast cleanses and detoxes. Okay. So here's my famous saying. It says, this is what I hear all the time when people are promoting things. Well, it worked for me before, so I'm going to do it again. If something works, you don't have to do it again. Okay. If it works, meaning you've reached a sustainable way to live your life, eat the foods that you want, maintain the weight and the way that you want to feel, and you've optimized your health. If that's the case, why would you have to do it again? Right. So one of my favorite stories is I had a friend many years ago. She was very into Weight Watchers. And every time that she would go back and do it again, I would say, well, if you ever want some, some help, you don't have to limit the foods that you eat, have to limit the amounts, all of that when you work with me, I'm happy to help you. And she said, well, it worked before. It always works. I'm going to do what works. Okay. Well, you keep returning to it and it doesn't work long term. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for sustainable long-term changes that feel good. But this is why change can feel so hard. Like I said, it's not about willpower. We've got neurotransmitter imbalances. We've got programming, marketing that perpetuates these myths about calories in and calories out and the things that we should be eating. Habits that we think are impossible to break. Those are the things that, we have been doing for so long. It's like brushing your teeth with your right hand, right? Would you ever consider going to the bathroom, picking up your toothbrush and brushing with your left hand? No. So habits are ingrained in us about the way that we eat. These are things that we have the ability to undo, but we have to have the desire to do that, right? Hormonal imbalances. So if we are dealing with insulin resistance and we feel hungry all the time, that's a problem. Maybe we're going through menopause and we're moody and we're grabbing food that we know isn't good for us, but we don't know any other way to soothe ourselves, right? And then pressure from family, spouse, friends, kids, and so on. I cannot tell you how many times I have worked with a client who has the best of intentions for herself or himself. And then we'll get on a call and I'll say, how are things going? And it's like, oh gosh, well, last night everybody did just wore me down and we all went out to eat and I ended up eating all this food and now I have terrible diarrhea and I feel miserable, right? So this always goes back to trusting yourself and feeling like you have control and power over what you do with your life. We have to stop giving into the pressure from the people and the things around us, the marketing around us, the people in our lives, the people that think they know best for us, and start trusting ourselves. This whole series is about flexing your medical and health freedom muscle. And it doesn't just mean against the government and the people out there that are in control of the toxic foods and our, that we're eating and the things that they're feeding us and putting in our water. This means taking back your power from the people in your life that have kept you from being the healthiest person that you can be. So I can't wait to get into some of the other essentials too. You guys are going to see that, this is the functional approach. All of these things are important. So you're probably going, good Lord, is there any good news yet? Yes, there's great news. Most of the effects of poor eating habits can be reversed or improved. So yay to that, right? But what's the solution? Well, I wish it was, on the next slide, I wish I could say, here it is. This is what you do. And it's over. Thanks for attending. But that's not the truth. That's not the way it goes. And it's never going to be one thing. That is why there are 7 essential things that our school is founded on. And that's why we focus on 7 things. But you have to remember this. You've got to take bite-sized pieces of what feels right to you and create change in a low stress way. So I would never say to this woman right here, all right, give up that thing in your right hand and start eating the thing in your left. You don't have to do what she's doing. In fact, it's a guaranteed backfire or fail for most people. A very small percentage of people can just give up everything that they love and dive headfirst into a healthy lifestyle. Very small handful. So one of the reasons that is because, again, change is hard when we don't know why it's hard, right? Is it neurotransmitters? Is it hormones? Is it pressure? Is it programming? That is part of figuring out what works best for you, is to do that investigative and exploratory work of, why am I living in a way that doesn't honor me and honor my self-worth? Why am I living or eating in a way that doesn't give me, the tools that I need to feel best in my life? So the first thing is always first. Don't forget the first essential: stress perception. How you see things determines how you digest your food, how your digestive health progresses. So let's just use this for just a moment before we move into talking about the healthier ways of eating that don't make you want to cry. Okay. So when we're stressed out, as I mentioned in the stress perception webinar, the first thing that the first two things that go are procreation, right? Because who wants to have sex and have babies and all of that? Our bodies are made to not do that when we're stressed out, but our digestion is also shut down. So if we are under significant stress, we have not only probably caused imbalances in our hormones, our neurotransmitters, but we are shutting down the production of stomach acid. Without sufficient stomach acid, we are basically doomed for nutrient malabsorption, acid reflux, all kinds of leaky gut problems. And then again, it's a vicious cycle that we get stuck in. So we have to remember the first essential is stress perception at all times. When you sit down to eat your food, which is one of the first things you should do, is sit down and eat. Take deep breaths to your food, laugh, enjoy it, right? Get into that parasympathetic response that we talked about last week, which again, you can watch that in the replay because we'll include it. When we are in parasympathetic response and our body is in rest and digest mode, then we are easier to digest our food. We have the appropriate stomach acid. We are enjoying our food. We are getting back to that image I shared with you earlier of the family sitting down and connecting with each other. Super important. So here are some healthier ways of eating that don't make you want to cry, right? So traditional foods, the Weston A. Price Foundation. I have a book called Nourishing Traditions. It's one of the first books that I bought when I realized I've got to start eating red meat again. I've got to get myself back on the horn with taking care of myself. Not eating red meat was probably one of the most harmful things I ever did to my health. I developed thyroid problems. I developed muscle problems. I developed pain, chronic pain, low iron. My hormones got all wackadoodle. It was a disaster. 23 years of taking that food out of my diet caused significant problems for me. But it was also, let me remind you, very important for me to humanely add meats back into my life. And one of the things that was first brought to my attention was Weston A. Price, because they promoted humanely raised foods. They promoted ancestral, seasonal ways of eating. So that was really important to me. And when I started to learn about that, I thought, gosh, I feel overwhelmed. But as I learned more, I thought, wow, this is so much easier than eating out of a box or worrying about recipes that have lots of complicated fillers and unhealthy things, right? So the perfect health diet is actually the name of a diet that I love. So Paul Jaminet, I've been recommending this food pyramid, even though it's not a pyramid or a plate or any of those other things. It's an apple. And I love the way that he breaks this down. So you're able to see what he believes. So think of these leaves as portions, the stem as a portion, right? Like the pyramid kind of tiers up. This shows you the portion size that you would eat with each one of these things. So this is also traditional eating. So we're looking at eating things that are healthy when it comes to, vegetables, herbs, and spices, safe starches, soups, sauces, eggs, all of these things, right? Organs and meats and grains. So look at the grains over there. We're talking about grains that have been soaked or sprouted or fermented, right? We're talking about vegetable oils that make sense, not these rancid canola oils and things like that. Legumes and sugars. We're not talking about your traditional white sugars. So when he talks about those things over here on the do not eat list, we can still eat some of the things that fall into that kind of, I guess, definition in our minds, right? So when he says vegetable oils, no, we don't want to eat canola oil, but we want to eat oils, as he mentioned above, like coconut oil and olive oil and avocado oils and things like that, okay? So legumes, I'm not so much against legumes, but I'm against like the way that specific things are prepared. So with grains and legumes, if we're soaking them, we're fermenting them, we're able to take out some of those toxic ingredients. So there's ways around that particular do not eat part, right? But just look at all of the things that you can eat on here. So many people, when they say you can't eat alcohol, you can't have chocolate, you should never have dairy, there's wiggle room in there. So when I talked about the 80-20 and the 90-10, this guy has the best so-called pyramid in my mind to start easing into a healthier way of eating. So this is one of the things that I wanted to share some like happy pictures of food for a moment here. So who doesn't love bacon? I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't eat it. But when I brought bacon back into my life, one of the first things I said to myself after I got through the initial tears, because I had some tears around eating meat again. I had to really get myself right with it. I'd actually met the farmer. I learned about how they process their food and all that. But one of the first things I said to myself was, oh my gosh, how in the world have I been missing this for so long, right? So these are healthy foods. These are things you can eat. And one of my favorite questions from the husbands when I would work with couples, or families, one of the husbands would always say, she gonna take away my meat and make me eat granola. I mean, it was so common. They thought that eating healthy was about not eating meat and that all they were gonna get to eat was granola, which I don't know where that came from. I don't know. I have no idea. But no, when you eat healthy and you eat right and it's humanely raised and it's a traditional food, you can eat all of the things you love, including pizza, right? So when I was married, one of our things that we would do before I really went down that rabbit hole of learning how to cook traditionally and all that was Friday night was pizza night. And every Friday night the pizza came from this local place called Michael's. It was such a tradition. It was like, get 2 movies from Blockbuster. I'm really aging myself here. Get 2 movies from Blockbuster, grab a pizza from Michael's, and then I would have my own pizza that I would make because I really didn't want to eat all the grease, right? And so I remember when I said, we are going gluten-free, we're going to start eating paleo, we've got to get things straightened out. Braden cannot be raised eating this way. It's not healthy. You're overweight. I don't feel good. He said to me, if you can figure out a way to make pizza taste good, I guess I'll consider it. And that sticks with me today. So that was the one thing I did was I created a gluten-free pizza recipe. And that started to shift the needle a little bit for the family. So I want to say this too. When we begin the process of change, and this was one of the slides that I started this whole series with, we have to remember that we have other people coming along with us. I mean, most of us have children or spouses or partners or people that we share our life with. We don't want to shove everyone off the cliff, right? Because what's going to happen is your kids are going to start eating sugar when you're not around. They're going to start buying candy if they can. Your partner, your spouse might just continue to eat even worse at lunchtime when you're not around, right? And then it becomes a sabotaging thing. We have to make this easy. We have to make it to where people want to participate at their own rate of speed. So if you're dipping your whole foot in the water of change, like I was, maybe you've got a kid that says, I can only put my baby toe in. And maybe you've got a spouse that says, all right, I'll put my big toe in the water, but I'm not going all the way. Fine. Make a wish list for your family. Everyone gets to put on that list what they want to have a healthier lifestyle. And I've mentioned this is one of the most powerful lists I ever made. Everything went on there, from hardwood floors to get rid of the bromide in the carpet, to healthier food, to all humanely raised meats all the time, like 100%, to making sure that my garden was completely organic. All of these things went on our list. And I just continued to add to it. And as I financially, emotionally, and physically was able to do this without too much stress, I would make the changes and cross it off the list. So the other thing you can do is erase your mind of any old ways of thinking about food. So if any of these thoughts are in your mind, calories in, calories out, oh, fat is not good for you, oh, I need to run more and eat less, erase your mind of any old ways of thinking about food and try to stay with me through this series. You guys are going to learn so much more, and you're going to have such a better outlook about all of the things that have to do with life in general, because the goal here is to get you back to the basics of living and remind you of what life was like when you could actually taste food that tastes like food in a low stress way. So we're going to talk about all of that as we move through it all. Involve your kids in shopping and cooking. I tell the story of my kid, grab your cart, Braden, and he'd be like, all right, he'd go get his little cart with a flag on it so I could always see where he was. And I gave a lot of freedom to my child, within safety reasons, of course, whenever we'd be out in the world, because I wanted him to understand and learn what it meant to grocery shop. I wanted him to understand what it meant to pick up a box and look at a label. So he learned about GMOs when he was old enough to actually, read the alphabet, right? So I would say, go pick out your favorite cereal that doesn't have the word, that has the GF or gluten-free symbol on it. Okay, he'd be so excited. He'd come back with cereal, sometimes 4 boxes. I'm like, okay, we only need 1 for now, right? Or cookies or crackers or whatever. He loved it. He loved it. And today he's a gluten-free, dairy-free kid. I mean, last night we gathered for a birthday gathering. My mom made a beautiful gluten-free lasagna. It had all these yummy vegetables, humanely raised meats, all that in it, but it had cheese in it. And he is so convicted to his way of eating. He didn't even eat lasagna last night at a birthday party. He said, nope, I'm not doing it, right? So the earlier you can involve your kids in that process, you guys, and make it fun for them and involve them in what they eat, the better. Clean out your pantry and refrigerator. So here's the thing with this. I want to just give you guys again, don't take everything out and throw it in the trash. This is an easy thing to do, a low stress thing to do. I want you to think about what it would look like to put a piece of paper on your countertop and write healthy food or safe food. I like the word safe food because when I say safe, it means that I can eat it more than likely without having any repercussions, right? And then on the other page, you can write unsafe or unhealthy, whatever works for you. When you clean your pantry out, I want you to clean it out and I want you to put your food on each side of that piece of paper. And this isn't just the pantry, it's the refrigerator as well. So you're going to do these individually, pantry first, refrigerator, whatever. Clean them out, set them out, and look at them. Okay. And then I'm going to include a link in your replay that's going to give you just a list of what I'm talking about today, traditional foods and whatnot. And I want to see how well you do with understanding what is a healthy food and what's not. And as you start to put the food back in the pantry, and yes, I'm telling you, back in the pantry, back in the refrigerator, right? As you start to do that, all I want you to do is be aware. I want you to be aware and start to educate yourself on the process of understanding. The more ingredients there are in a food, the less healthy it is for you. Okay. All right. So that's an easy thing you can do on a weekend. Have the kids join you with it. But I'm telling you, if you start throwing everything away, you're going to stress yourself out. So clean it out, put it back, and come up with a plan. Stop following any conventional food guidelines. Okay. This is like taking advice from the doctor about your heart as he's smoking a cigarette back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, or whenever that crazy thing was actually a reality. All right. Or this is like taking advice from the doctor that comes in who can't button his white coat, who tells you have to lose weight. Stop following conventional food guidelines. You cannot trust them, but you can trust yourself. Okay. The more you do to show up and educate yourself, the more you can trust yourself. And then I'm telling you, listen to your gut, literally listen to your gut. And this is what I mean by that. Okay. Our gut is like our second brain, and that is absolutely proven to be true. So if you've ever, maybe you've had an instinct or a gut feeling that something just wasn't right. Like last week when I was Monday afternoon or Monday morning, it was morning, I was out of town. I had a gut feeling something wasn't right. I started to feel unsettled. And I kept saying, something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but I feel very unsettled. My gut's telling me something's wrong. Next day, I come home, my kid goes in for emergency appendectomy. Okay. That's the same thing when it comes to making decisions for food and what you put in your mouth and how you live your life. So if your gut is telling you something doesn't feel right about a food that you're about to eat or a food you've already eaten, pay attention to that. Part of that is getting present. Part of that is sitting down. Part of that is looking at your food so that your brain can tell your body, all right, we're going to eat, because that's the first thing that stimulates the enzymes from your body, from your pancreas, your liver. Everything starts to work when your eyes look at food and you start to salivate, and the messages go from your brain to the rest of your body. Oh, let's prepare the enzymes we need to eat. So before you put that first bite in your mouth, it's important to get quiet, get present, look at your food and say, okay, I'm prepared to eat. Now, here's a little tip for you. If within 72 hours, you don't feel good for any reason, maybe you've got diarrhea, constipation, fatigue, maybe you're achy, your joints hurt, or you have some symptom that you didn't have within the last 3 days, it is time to look at what you put in your mouth. Just because you ate something last night and you have no heartburn the next day doesn't mean that was good for you, that you could eat that, right? 72 hours is the window of time for food intolerances, not allergies. Allergies are things that cause anaphylactic shock and you need to go to the hospital for, things that your body has severe reactions to. But if your body feels like it didn't tolerate something, it's going to give you about 72 hours before it can happen within a 72-hour window. Let me just say that. So trusting yourself, listening to your gut, paying attention to your body's messages is very important to learning what's best for you. And let me just say this also. There are many times where people are dealing with such significant, horrible IBS, IBD, chronic constipation, autoimmunity, depression, fatigue, all of that, that they go to the doctor and the doctor says, if it's a functional medical doctor, many times the doctor says, here's your elimination diet. Don't eat any of these things. Come back in 4 weeks and tell me how you feel. I can't think of anything worse to do to somebody. I can't tell you how many times it was done to me and how much worse I felt and how stressed out I felt. Not a good approach. So if there are any functional medical doctors listening to this, I urge you to reconsider how stressed out you're making your clients by giving them a list of things they cannot have and then sending them on their way to figure it out. Horrible, horrible way to practice medicine, in my opinion. Okay. Now, are there times that's important? If someone is in a serious emergency, and I've had clients that have been in serious emergencies before where their doctor said, you only have a certain amount of time before I'm going to take your colon out. Yes, then an elimination diet can be super powerful, and so can a keto diet or a vegetarian diet or a autoimmune paleo diet, something like that. But those are rare circumstances. So let's not stress ourselves out. Let's take our time with this and let's do this in a way that feels good to ourselves and to our gut, right? And let's talk about the kids for one more moment here. So, if you want to raise healthy eaters, don't force them to eat what they don't like. Teach them to explore healthier options and involve them in decisions about their own food. Sorry, mom, but I'm sharing here. I cannot tell you how many times I sat at the table every single night with one green bean or one piece of broccoli or a beet, which almost makes me want to gag thinking about it. The lights were low, the dishwasher was on. It was just me and the dog under my chair. Everyone had eaten because I absolutely couldn't stomach it. I could not tolerate the flavor, the taste. My gag reflex would go out. So I would just sit there miserable, waiting, I don't know what for, and eventually try to swallow that food whole, y'all. I'm not kidding, with my warm milk, gross. And then it would just make me feel worse. So here's an idea. What would it be like if you gave your children the opportunity to tell you what they do and don't like so that they would be better eaters, right? I also don't agree with hiding healthy food in food, right? Hiding things in food. That's not teaching your kids anything. Now, if you've got someone that's, a child that's compromised with their nutrients or whatever, you've got to just get those foods in. Maybe that's an okay time, right? But if you really want them to develop healthy, decision making skills and things like that, involve them. Put something on their plate. This is what I've done with my son. I say, all you have to do is taste it. And I've done this since he was little. You don't have to eat it if you don't like it. And so that is how we roll. And he will tell me, I don't like that. And so if time passes and I'll say, I know you didn't like this 6 months ago, but I made it this way. Will you try it? All right. But if I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it. Okay, that's a deal. One of the things we need to keep in mind is that children's enzymes are not the same as adults. Our enzymes change as we age. So if they aren't producing the enzymes that they need to, say, digest broccoli or a high cruciferous vegetable, something that's goitrogenic, really, really, gassy, right? The smelly foods, cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, all that. If they don't have the enzymes to digest those foods and we force them to do that, we are creating a problem. So involve them. Again, one last time, create the health wish list. Anything goes, nothing is off limits. Okay, so I want to touch on this. Sometimes I'm going to have repetitive slides in here from prior webinars because I want to really push some things home. Why is it important you guys continue to flex your freedom muscle with health and medical freedom? Because you need to create trust in yourself and your instincts as we move forward. Every single day we move forward, that we are being controlled, because we are, by, the government they're doing whatever they want with our food, you guys. They don't have to tell us if there's gluten in our food. They don't have to tell us, if there's inflammatory foods that are bothersome or that we don't tolerate. There are a lot of things that they're getting away from. So if we don't trust ourselves and our own instincts, we're going to continue to depend on people who don't have our best interests in mind. When you take care of yourself, you depend on the system less, right? So teach your kids and grandkids that they have a choice and a voice about what goes into their body. We are losing our rights daily right now. And anybody that doesn't believe that, you guys, please go out and start looking at what is going on with our food. Remember, when you buy prepackaged toxic food, you are approving Frankenfood. This is like voting with your dollars, right? You are voting for the things that you want for yourself and your family by what you buy. If you continue to buy these foods that are toxic to you, they will continue to make more and more of them. And here's the good news. As we're starting to experience some of the food shortages, as I'm seeing every time I go to the grocery store, the one thing that seems to always be available are the organic gluten-free foods, because what's everyone else eating? Junk food, right? So there's no better time right now than to replace all the junk you're eating a little bit at a time and start adapting your taste buds and your enzymes to eat healthier food. So again, the more demand there is for junk, the more junk that they will create. And again, I love to say this because it's so true, and I hope to empower you with this. No one knows you better than you know yourself. Nobody. So if there's a moment of doubt where you're like, God, I ate that food last night, I never should have done that, please step out of the blame and shame, step into the grace. Remember that, yes, you know what's better for yourself. Maybe you made a decision that didn't feel so good, but that's okay. It's okay. Look at that. Don't judge it. Watch it float by and make a different decision. And as I always say, we're moving from dependency to independency and freedom. If you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't eat it. If you can't eat it without harm, you shouldn't put it on your skin. Remember, your skin is your largest organ, right? So whatever goes on your skin goes straight into your bloodstream. Getting sick takes time, and so does getting healthy. It is a marathon. It is not a race. It is not a sprint. People were healthier before frankenfood. You guys remember, it's frankenfood is a cornucopia of pesticide-laden monocrops and lab-engineered frankenfood. You have instincts for a reason. So as we move along, I'm going to teach you how to get back to listening to them. Also, as a reminder, please stop using Google to search for health-related foods and diseases and all of those things, right? Google doesn't have your best interest in mind. Move into different search engines. So we're talking about DuckDuckGo, Brave, Start Page, things like that, okay? And don't forget these tools that we talked about when we started this series. You can order your own labs. You can interpret your own labs. Having a glucometer, a thermometer, a pulse oximeter, and a blood pressure cuff at your house in your power toolbox is going to help you to avoid going to the doctor for unnecessary things, right? And I'm not telling you not to go to the doctor, you guys. Please don't ever take my advice as that. I'm just giving you suggestions and education to help you guys feel more powerful. I will share those links that you can order those labs and interpret your labs and all that in the replay, of course. And then my biggest recommendation, because I am one, hire a health coach. If you want to make this easier for yourselves, and the link will be in your replay, just go out and look at what is out there, you guys. Look at the people that have poured their heart and soul and their money into getting educated. Many of these health coaches have spent more time learning about a healthy lifestyle that moves you away from disease and into health than most doctors. And I promise you, some of them have been on journeys like mine, where it was a whole decade of learning about the health, the mind, the body, the spirit, all of the things that keep us healthy from a functional perspective. I could never have gotten that education in school. I would never practice surgery, but I sure as hell can be able to tell you how you can take back your power and start to care for yourself. Our health coaches are board certified. They have done the work. They know what you're going through. They are here to support you and inspire you and lift you up and give you the education that you need to make decisions for yourself. All right. And this is where we are so far today. We have done on the 7 Essentials series, number 1, stress perception. Number 2, whole food. Next week, or next time, I think not next week, but the week after, because I have time to prepare slides. We're going to talk about sleep optimization, safe movement, spirituality, addressing trauma, and fun. So as I mentioned before, not everything is going to have a slide deck, but I will do a deck for all of the 7 essentials so that you guys can get the replay and stop and look at the things we're talking about. I also wanted to give you a heads up that I have someone coming to you to talk to you about how powerful the lab test analyzer can be that you guys are going to have access to in the replay. The founder of the lab test analyzer is coming to talk to us in June. I know that's a month and a half out, but I want to get as much of the 7 essentials foundation laid for you guys before we bring him in, because he's going to talk to you about how simple it can be to really take back your power when it comes to your labs as well. All right. So here's where you find me, CarmenHunterHealth.com, Carmen Hunter Health on Mighty Network. So if you see that Mighty Networks logo on the top right, you're going to go to that network and you're going to look for my logo, which is the Carmen Hunter Health logo. And then if you're really into all of the other stuff that's really got us outside the box, you guys talking about control, politics, how we got into this giant mess that we're in right now, come to Seeking and Speaking Your Inner Truth with myself and Diane Kaiser. Because I'm going to tell you about, in just a moment, I tell you about somebody that we're bringing in on the 22nd, which is next Thursday. But I want to say thank you. I always have to stop and say thank you, because we have to. It's one of the most important things we can do in life is to show gratitude from an authentic place. And I understand that you have a million things you could have been doing for the last hour, but you spent them with me. And I'm just very grateful for that, because what that means to me as a health coach is that means that there are more of you out there interested in caring for yourselves and your family and taking back your power and your freedom. And when you're doing that and I'm doing that, that means that they get less control and they lose their power over us. All right. So I'm going to exit my screen share. I'm going to come over here, stop my share, turn on my video, and say hello. All right. So we're done with the presentation on the whole foods. We are moving in through the 7 Essentials series. I'm going to take a look at the chat and just see if anybody's got anything to say or any questions whatsoever. But I see a lot of health coaches on here. Hello from Colombia, South America. Yay, yes. Okay, so is it Uchi or Uki? I'm not sure how if I'm even close to saying that right. But please book a call with us. We have people from all over the world. that have joined us for this process. And what we're trying to do at the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, and for those people out there that are looking to get healthy, is to take the overwhelm away from this whole process. Well, let me say I'm going to say and then my team at the Institute as well. We are done with complicating this process. We are done with making this so hard for people. It's just not okay to make people feel worse about how they can feel better. And when I'm going to turn this light off because that screen is super red. And when we're doing things like elimination diets and bags of supplements and powders and proteins and all of these complicated things, when all we're doing is throwing that stuff at people and telling them to go out on their own, we're not doing anyone any good. I mean, I think that we can all say that we have to start somewhere, and we need to start with the basics. And that means, what does it mean to eat in a way that feels good to me? What does that mean for me to trust myself? And health coaches are fantastic at doing that. They can guide you along the way because they know it's up to you. They want you to be in charge of yourself, right? They want you to listen to yourself, and they're there to support you and lift you up as well. Hi, Grazia. Thank you so much. Thank you for the compliment, all as well. Appreciate that. And thank you for letting me know my screen share was working. And hi, Sandra from Ontario. Yes, she's one of my coaches. And okay, so Grazia, you are the functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. We have health coaches from everywhere, you guys, from all over the world. Yeah. All right. So lots of great conversation going on. You guys are so helpful. And see, this is health coaches just popping in and talking to you guys about all of this stuff that's so important to us. Even though you did not like the green beans and peas at supper time. No, Mom, I hated them. And look at me now, right? Yeah. Vegetables are about 80% of what I eat now, you guys. And yes, I turned out okay for the most part, right? All right. So thank you so much for joining. Let me look at the Q&A real quick and see if there's any questions. Teresa says, okay, great information. I'm looking for a good functional health doctor in my way. I don't know where to look. Sometimes Google doesn't always rate them well. Well, Teresa, I'm glad you said that for the benefit of all of us to learn from. So as I mentioned, when we Google, just remember this, you've got Google, you've got Facebook, you've got Amazon, you've got all of those people, right? We've got the global elite, the big tech people. They don't have your best interest in mind. So if you went out and you looked for, let's just say that you were looking for a way to increase your vitamin D. All right, I'm just going to throw that out there. This is an example. One of the last things you're going to see somebody recommend from one of these places is to go outside and put your arms and legs to the sun for 10 to 15 minutes a day. Why is that? Because no one's going to make money off the sun. Okay. Can't make money off nature. Right. So you're not going to find what you need there. I am happy to share information about how to find a functional health doctor. I'll share that in the replay, but I want to encourage you first to look at the health coaches first. And this is why. First and foremost, many times when we think that we need a practitioner, we need a doctor, we really don't. And I'm not saying that you don't need a doctor because I don't know your situation. And, I'm doing the CYA, covering my ass here, CMA, covering my ass here, and just saying that everybody needs to do what feels best for them. But what I can tell you is after 21 doctors, myself, trying to find answers and help and support, if I had had one health coach that had the knowledge that half of the health coaches that I know have, I never would have probably had to see more than one or two of those doctors. And I went to functional medicine practitioners, naturopathic doctors, kinesiologists, massage therapists, you name it, I went. I went to conventional medical doctors, orthopedic doctors, rheumatologists, you just throw it out there. I went there, osteopaths and so on, okay? Nobody gave me the knowledge and the help and the support that I needed except for me. When I finally learned after 10 years of learning as a health coach, I helped myself. So that's why I know that health coaches can be really beneficial. I will include a link to help you guys go look for a functional practitioner, but I want to encourage you to look there first. Okay. And all those links will be in the replay, Teresa. So thank you for that point. And as you proved my point right. They're censoring you. They're not going to give you the ability to find those reputable people to help you. Okay. All right. Patty. Hi, Patty. What do you think about kombucha to support gut health? Well, if you saw my pantry back there, and my mom can weigh in right now and tell you, I absolutely love it. I brew my kombucha at home, and I can't even keep up with how fast my kombucha is brewing and how good it actually tastes. I am a big fan of kombucha. There are some caveats to that. There's some exceptions to kombucha. Kombucha can be one of those foods that some people don't tolerate, very few, but some people can get a high histamine response from that. And sometimes maybe their gut is just not healthy enough to handle all the bacteria. So I love kombucha. I've been drinking it for a long time. I love to brew it. It's very simple, much cheaper and more affordable that way. And I definitely promote it. But I also do that as a health coach. When I recommend it to someone, I always say, start with a capful, right? Start with a little bit and just see what happens. The first time I ate kombucha, and here's a tip, don't shake it, okay? Don't shake it. I shook a bottle of kombucha in my car. And for anyone who doesn't know, it smells vinegary. It's got kind of a vinegary smell. It blew all over my car, and I cannot tell you how long it took to get it out. It turned me off big time. So then when I finally went back to trying it again, I didn't shake it, and I really started to get almost like addicted to it. It was so good. So yeah, don't shake it. Nice it, rock it back and forth so you can get the benefit of the bacteria on the bottom of the bottle, and start small. It's a good question. Grazia, do you have a referral list for coaches? If so, how can I ascribe to your list? I'm also an FDN practitioner. So Grazia, the board certified coaches have gone through the prep course on the Institute for Functional Health Coaching, and they have taken the board certification course. So what you can do is you can email support at Institute for Functional Health Coaching, and they can tell you the steps to take to get on our directory on Holistic Health Link and on our database for our board certified health coaches. So when people go out there, we just want to make sure that they've been vetted and educated properly so that when the general public and people looking for health coaches go to look, we have consistency in who they are and what they offer. And so, yeah, so just send an email to support, and they'll be happy to help you through that process. And we have quite a few FDN people in there as well. All right, Teresa, I hope that was helpful. Fantastic. Okay, so are we done? All done. Oh yeah, mom says Carmen's is the best, better than the store. Well, I don't know about that, but it's pretty flavorful. So thank you, Carol. Very informative. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you, coaches that come in to support our people as they join. And thank you most of all to those of you who are not in the health and wellness profession that are eager to take back your power, that understand that the more of us that start to do this and understand how important it is that we get back to the basics, and the less money we spend on fast food and junk and franken foods, and the less of our power we give away, the healthier we are as a whole. We will have more emotionally, mentally, physically healthy and financially healthy people in our life, and our children that are going to be leading the way in the future are going to be healthier emotionally and mentally and physically as well. Because right now, anybody that's running the stuff that's going on, they are not healthy in their heads, right? Not at all. We can see that by watching mainstream news, which I don't do, but Lord in heaven, help us all, right? We don't need a bunch of people running our country later on that have not been feeding their brains and their hearts with connection and good food. Okay. So thanks so much for joining today. Keep your eyes open for registration for the next webinar that we're going to do, and it's sleep optimization, right? Then safe movement. I think I got that in order. So join us and then watch for the replay. And all I ask of you all is that you invite people into these events. Bring people in that you love and care about. Bring people in you may want to drop a little bit of a hint to that may just be on the edge of maybe diabetes or something. And, you know, and remember this, you guys, remember this, if you are in an older population, and, you know, I'm going that direction, we're all going there, the better care you take of yourself, the less responsibility and less care that the people that they're your little people, right, have to worry about as you get older, right? The last thing we want to do is be a burden, but the world lives to be a burden. Our world is living to be a burden to our children. So let's learn how to not do that. And let's love our kids by taking better care of ourselves. All right. Okay. Go out to carmenhunterhealth.com and check us out and see what we have to offer. And I hope to see more of you in Mighty Networks, Carmen Hunter Health. Look for the logo, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.